Okay, so get this. What if the way AI makes those crazy realistic images, the ones I'm talking about, what if it's like the same way life on Earth, like, evolved?
Whoa, now that'd be wild.
Right. And that's what we're getting into today. This new paper, it's called Diffusion Models are Evolutionary Algorithms.
Mm.
And they're saying there's this deep connection, like mathematically, between these super powerful AI systems and evolution.
Yeah, it's a bold statement for sure, and the research is really new, but even if it's just a little bit right, it could be huge.
Totally. So I think our listener probably knows about evolutionary algorithms, right? Like using how natural selection works to solve problems.
Exactly. It's like, how can we use that power of natural selection to find solutions, just like in nature? And what this paper's saying is that these diffusion models, deep down, might be doing the same thing, even if it's not obvious.
Which brings us to diffusion models. They're a big deal in AI right now, because they're awesome at making new data, images, text, even music.
And the way they do it is really cool. Imagine you have a perfect picture, right? And then you slowly add noise, like digital static, until you can't even tell what it is. Diffusion models, they learn how to reverse that. Go from noise back to the picture.
So it's like solving a puzzle, but you start by totally messing it up, and then you got to put it all back together.
Exactly. And that's where the evolution part comes in. They're saying that when the AI takes away the noise, step by step, it's kind of like evolution in reverse.
Wait, hold on. So instead of like random changes making something better at surviving over time, like regular evolution, the AI is making specific changes to get back to the original image, and those are like mutations.
Yeah, you got it. It's a really interesting way to think about it. The goal isn't survival, but getting to that original data from all that noise.
Okay, my brain's doing backflips right now. This isn't just like a cool idea, though, right? They actually did the math to prove it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And what they found is that the equations behind these diffusion models, if you tweak them a bit, they basically translate into the language of evolutionary algorithms. It's a real link.
So it's not just that they look similar. There's a deeper connection between these two things. Okay, now this is where it gets really good.
It does. And they even went further. They used this idea to make a whole new algorithm. They called it diffusion evolution, and they wanted to see if it could actually solve problems in new ways.
And did it work? Spill the tea?
It did. They tried it out on some like classic problems, like trying to find the highest point on a map, and it actually did really well.
So they used this diffusion evolution to help like virtual explorers or whatever find the highest peaks.
Exactly. But here's the really cool part. They also tested it on this problem in AI. It's called a cart pole. Have you heard of it?
Oh, yeah. It's like that thing where you have to keep a pole from falling over by like moving a cart back and forth.
Right. Yeah, that's the one. It's way harder for AI than it looks. Anyway, they use this diffusion evolution thing, and get this, it found a bunch of different solutions to keep the pole balanced.
Whoa. So instead of just one way to do it, it found a whole bunch. Why is that a good thing?
Well, think about it. In real life, having different ways to solve a problem is super useful. Like, if one way doesn't work, you've got backup.
Right. It's like having a giant toolbox. Yeah.
This is so cool. Okay, so we've got this crazy connection between diffusion models and evolution. The math adds up, and it even helps AI learn better. What does it all mean? Where do we go from here?
Well, one of the most interesting things about evolution is that it never stops, right? It keeps going, finding new things all the time.
Life finds a way, like they say in that movie.
Exactly. But diffusion models, the way we use them now, they usually have a specific goal. Make a picture of this cat, write a poem like that, They're not really exploring all the possibilities like evolution does.
Yeah.
So could we make them more like evolution? Like diffusion models that are always exploring and coming up with new stuff?
Yeah.
That would be insane.
That's the million-dollar question. And it gets even crazier. Imagine using those open-ended diffusion models to, like, simulate evolution itself. We could learn so much about how life adapts and changes, maybe even discover things that haven't happened in nature yet.
Whoa. Okay, slow down.
Yeah.
We went from AI making pictures to understanding how life itself works. Are there other places where this diffusion evolution thing might be happening and we just haven't noticed yet?
That's what's so cool about research like this. It makes you think about everything differently. We like to put things in boxes, right? Like biology over here, AI over there. But what if they're more connected than we thought?
So this paper could be like just the beginning. It could be showing us something really fundamental about how everything works. This has been mind-blowing. But let's bring it back to our listener for a sec. What's the takeaway here? So, I feel like we've gone down the rabbit hole here. It's exciting, But a lot to take in. This whole diffusion model thing being like evolution, that's the main idea, right?
Exactly. And it's important to remember this is all really new research. Think of it like the first spark of an idea. It could turn into something huge or, maybe it fizzles out as people look into it more.
Yeah, that's science, right? Always pushing the limits.
Totally. And that's why diving into this kind of research is so cool. It's not always about finding all the answers, but about asking the right questions. It changes how you see things.
It's like you walk past something a million times and then one day, boom, you really see it for the first time.
Exactly. So our listener might be thinking, okay, that's cool and all, but what can I actually do with this?
Besides, like, impress their friends with their AI knowledge, which is always a plus.
Haha, right. But on a serious note, this paper shows how important it is to connect different areas, Like, we tend to think in silos, biology, AI, whatever, but maybe they're not so different after all.
So, like, next time you're reading about some big AI breakthrough, don't just think about the tech stuff, think bigger. Could this tell us something about, like, evolution, too?
Exactly. Or the other way around, right? Maybe evolution has some secrets that can help us make AI even better.
This has been an incredible deep dive. To wrap things up, here's something to think about, maybe while you're stuck in traffic or, doing the dishes. If evolution isn't just about biology, but like a fundamental rule of how things learn and get better, could the universe itself be like a giant diffusion model? Always changing, trying new things, and maybe, just maybe, creating something amazing in the process. Thanks for coming along for the ride on this one, everyone.
Okay, so get this. You know how AI is generating all those crazy realistic images these days?
Right.
Turns out that technology might be more closely related to evolution than anyone ever imagined.
Huh.
We're diving into some research today
Okay.
that suggests diffusion models, the AI behind those images, could be mirroring evolution itself.
It's not just a loose comparison either.
Hmm.
This research paper argues there's a deep mathematical link between how these AIs function and how life on Earth changes over time.
So we're talking less about AI art and more about, like, the fundamental rules of existence. That's kind of a big deal.
It really is.
Yeah.
To grasp this, we need to start with how those diffusion models actually work.
Okay.
Imagine taking a clear image and adding digital noise bit by bit until it's just static.
Okay.
A diffusion model essentially learns how to reverse that process, cleaning up the noise step by step to reveal a hidden image.
Okay. I'm with you so far. AI learning to denoise, but where does evolution even enter the picture?
Well, think about evolutionary algorithms. They're inspired by survival of the fittest.
Right.
You start with a bunch of random solutions, and the best performing ones reproduce, passing on their code. Over generations, those solutions get refined and improve.
So there's a parallel between AI denoising an image and evolution honing solutions over time. I'm starting to see a glimmer of a connection, but help me bridge the gap.
The paper suggests that evolution, where a population becomes better adapted and their fitness increases, can be seen as a diffusion model running in reverse.
Okay.
The noise of random variation gets refined by the denoising of natural selection, just like the AI cleaning up that image.
Hold on, so you're saying evolution is like a giant chaotic AI cleaning up the noise of random mutations to create life as we know it?
In a way, yes.
Wow.
Just as a diffusion model generates a realistic image from random noise, evolution could be viewed as generating well-adapted organisms from the noise of random mutations. The researchers even coined a term for it, diffusion evolution.
Diffusion evolution. Okay, now you've got my full attention. Did they actually build an algorithm based on this connection?
They did, and the results are promising.
Okay.
This diffusion evolution algorithm is exceptionally good at finding diverse solutions.
Diverse solutions. What does that mean in this context?
Imagine a landscape with multiple peaks, each representing the optimal solution to a problem.
Okay.
Some algorithms get stuck on one peak and miss others.
Right.
Diffusion evolution, however, seems able to find all the peaks, all the best solutions, because it utilizes that initial randomness, the noise, more effectively.
So it's like diffusion evolution is a more adventurous explorer, finding hidden solutions that other algorithms completely overlook.
Precisely. The researchers tested it on complex problems,
Yeah.
like the classic cart pole problem,
Yeah.
where you have to balance a pole upright on a moving cart.
Oh, right. That's much harder than it looks.
It really is. But diffusion evolution found successful strategies faster than traditional methods.
Okay, this is getting really interesting. But for those of us who aren't building the next AI overlord, why does any of this matter?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Firstly, this link could lead to better evolutionary algorithms, period.
Okay.
We're talking algorithms used in everything from designing more efficient airplanes to optimizing financial strategies. It impacts the real world.
More powerful tools to solve complex problems. That's definitely something to be excited about. What's the second reason?
It's a bit more philosophical, but just as mind-blowing. This research offers a completely new way of understanding evolution.
Okay.
The tools of AI might help us unravel the mysteries of how life on Earth adapts and changes over millions of years.
Oh, okay. That's a lot to process. We're talking about potentially reframing our entire understanding of how life developed.
Exactly. And this paper is really just the first step. It opens up a whole new world of questions about how learning and evolution are intertwined.
Okay, I'm ready to dive deeper. Can you give me an example of how this diffusion evolution thing works in action? Something from the research we're looking at.
Let's go back to that cart pole problem.
Okay.
A traditional evolutionary algorithm might start with a bunch of agents,
Okay.
lines of code, with different strategies for balancing that pole.
Right.
Some fail miserably,
Yeah.
some do okay, and a few, purely by chance, might keep the pole upright for a while.
Right. The ones that perform well get to reproduce and pass on their code survival of the fittest in action.
Exactly. But here's where diffusion evolution gets interesting.
Okay.
Instead of just blindly copying the winners, it's also learning from the mistakes, from the noise of previous generations.
So instead of just copying success, it's analyzing both the wins and the losses to find a better way forward.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
The equation behind diffusion evolution isn't just picking the best solutions.
All right.
It's using a weighted average based on fitness, incorporating information from a whole range of previous attempts. That's why it's so good at finding those multiple diverse solutions.
Okay, that makes sense. But there's one thing I'm still struggling with. You mentioned diffusion evolution could even work in really high-dimensional spaces, like with huge neural networks. How is that even possible? It sounds incredibly complex.
You're right, high-dimensional spaces can be a real challenge for these kinds of algorithms. That's where the researchers borrowed a brilliant trick from the world of diffusion models called latent space diffusion.
Latent space, that sounds a bit like something out of science fiction. What is it exactly?
Imagine trying to describe the location of every single grain of sand on a beach.
Oh, gosh.
It would take forever.
Yeah.
But you could simply say, it's on this beach. And that narrows it down without needing to specify each grain individually.
So latent space is like a more efficient way of representing a ton of information?
Precisely. It's about finding the hidden, simpler structure within a complex data set. Instead of trying to evolve solutions in the massive parameter space of a huge neural network,
Right.
diffusion evolution operates in a smaller, more manageable latent space.
And then it somehow translates those solutions back to the original super complex space.
Exactly.
Cool.
It's like finding the most efficient routes on a map and then using those routes to navigate a vast city. The researchers actually used a random projection technique to do this,
Okay.
which is fascinating in itself. We don't need to get into the technical details, but the point is, it works.
Okay.
They were able to evolve solutions for a neural network with over 17,000 parameters, much more efficiently than before.
17,000. That's incredible. So even incredibly complex problems might have a hidden, simpler structure that guides the best solutions. That's what makes diffusion evolution so powerful.
That's exactly it. And this has huge implications for how we approach problem solving with AI, and potentially even how we understand evolution itself.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. We've gone from AI art to potentially rewriting our understanding of evolution in just a few minutes. But are there any downsides to this whole diffusion evolution thing? Is it really the magic bullet, it seems to be?
That's where things get even more interesting. One of the big questions raised by this paper is the issue of open-endedness.
Okay.
Diffusion models have a fixed number of steps.
Right.
You start with noise, clean it up over a set number of iterations, and boom, you have your result.
But evolution doesn't really work like that, does it? It's a continuous process with no defined endpoint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you square this fixed-step process of diffusion models with the open-ended nature of evolution? It's something researchers are still trying to figure out.
Okay, so that's one limitation. What else? Are there other challenges or unanswered questions when it comes to diffusion evolution?
Well, this paper focuses on a specific type of diffusion model,
Okay.
one that uses something called Gaussian noise. But other types of diffusion models out there use different kinds of noise or work with different types of data.
Uh-huh.
Could those models lead to entirely new evolutionary algorithms?
Yeah.
Algorithms with their own strengths and weaknesses. That's a really exciting possibility to consider.
It's like we've stumbled onto a whole new set of tools for understanding and maybe even harnessing the power of evolution,
Yeah,
but we're only just starting to grasp what these tools can do.
precisely. And think about this.
Yeah.
If we can better understand the algorithms that might underpin evolution,
Right.
could we use that knowledge to build better AI systems?
Okay.
Systems that are more adaptable, more robust, more lifelike in how they learn and solve problems.
It's a pretty mind-blowing thought. We're basically talking about drawing inspiration from the oldest, most successful algorithm we know of, evolution itself, to build the AI of the future.
And it goes both ways. Remember that latent space idea we talked about?
Yes.
The way diffusion evolution found solutions in that simpler hidden structure? That might actually tell us something about how evolution itself tackles complexity. Maybe, just maybe, there are similar elegant structures hidden within biological systems that guide the evolutionary process.
Wow.
Structures we haven't even begun to imagine.
So not only could this revolutionize AI, but it could also unlock secrets about life itself that have been hidden for millennia.
That's the potential here. It really highlights how the line between artificial intelligence and the natural world, between the algorithms we build and the processes that govern life, is blurring.
Wow. I think we've officially reached peak mind-bending for one episode. But for our listeners who are eager to dive into this more, what's the key takeaway from all of this?
The big takeaway is this. As we delve deeper into the world of AI, we're not just building machines. We might be uncovering some of the universe's oldest and most profound secrets.
Right.
Secrets that could reshape our understanding of life itself.
I don't know about you, but I'm walking away from this deep dive with a whole new perspective on both AI and evolution. A huge thank you to you and to our listeners for joining us on this journey of discovery. Until next time, keep those minds curious.
Okay, get this. What if AI could evolve? And I don't mean in some sci-fi robot takeover way. I'm talking about changing how we solve, well, everything. We're diving into this research paper and it's basically saying there's a connection between those AI image generators everyone's going crazy for and, get this, Darwin.
Yeah, no, it's pretty wild stuff. We're talking about bridging this gap between, the newest AI, these diffusion models, and good old-fashioned evolution.
Right, okay. So we've all seen the AI images you type in a prompt and boom, photorealistic masterpiece. Seems like magic, right? But this paper is saying it's even cooler than that because what's happening behind the scenes could be evolution.
And not even just taking inspiration from it. Mathematically, it's almost like someone figured out how nature optimizes itself and turned it into code.
Oh, hold on. You're saying making a picture of a cat wearing a tiny hat is related to how birds evolved to fly? I'm going to need some convincing on that one.
Okay, think about it this way. Evolution is kind of like one giant denoising process, You've got all these random genetic variations in a species. Some are going to be useful, some not so much. The environment, it picks the winners. Survival of the fittest?
Right, survival of the fittest classic.
Exactly. So this paper, it argues something similar is happening in diffusion models, just in reverse. They start with total visual noise, and by slowly getting rid of that noise, they end up with a structured image. Like your cat in a hat.
So instead of getting rid of the bad stuff, it's more like refining random data until it fits the image.
You got it. And get this, they actually visualize it using something called a fitness landscape. Imagine a 3D map. Higher points are better solutions. Diffusion models are basically trying to climb to the highest peak on that map. They start at random and then figure out the best way up.
Okay, now I'm kind of seeing how it connects. But they didn't just stop there, did they? They took this whole diffusion evolution link and built a whole algorithm.
They did. They call it diffusion evolution. And instead of just making images, it takes those diffusion model ideas and uses them to solve problems more generally.
So less about the pretty pictures, more about actually doing stuff. What kind of problems are we talking?
Oh, think big. Like designing new materials, maybe even discovering new medicines. Even stuff like figuring out how the brain works. Anything where you need to find the absolute best solution out of a ton of possibilities.
Okay, now that's a bold claim. How does it, actually work? What's the magic here?
Right, imagine trying to bake. Like
Yeah.
the perfect chocolate chip cookie, right?
I am always down for a good cookie analogy.
Perfect. So instead of just changing the recipe randomly each time, diffusion evolution would take every single combination of ingredients and put them on a digital map. Every point is a slightly different recipe.
So, a bit more flour here, an extra minute in the oven there. Each little change is a different spot on the map.
Exactly. Then, just like a diffusion model gets rid of noise in an image, diffusion evolution starts refining those recipe points based on how good each batch of cookies turns out to be.
So it's like a massive automatic case test, trying to find the absolute best cookie recipe possible.
And because it's looking at so many possibilities at the same time, it can find that perfect recipe way faster than a person ever could.
This is seriously cool, but you said earlier it does even more than just find one best answer.
Yeah, this is where it gets even cooler. See, lots of algorithms get stuck in one spot. They find a good solution and stop. But diffusion evolution, it explores the entire landscape way better.
So instead of just one perfect cookie recipe, you end up with like a whole book of amazing variations.
Right. And that's like super useful, because in the real world, it's not always about just one best. Like, think about designing an airplane wing. It's not just about making it fly good, right?
You got to think about weight, how much it costs, keeping people safe, a million things.
Exactly. So having all these different designs that all work really well, it gives engineers way more to work with.
Makes sense. More flexibility, more options.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where this diffusion evolution thing, it really shines. It's not just one good solution, it's a whole toolbox full of them.
This is really something. I mean, if it can really do all that, we could be talking about huge discoveries, right? Like you mentioned drug development earlier.
Oh, for sure. And that's exactly what these researchers are saying, too. They think this whole diffusion evolution thing, it could totally change how we solve these really complex problems, and not just in one field either.
So like for something like cancer research.
Exactly. Imagine, instead of trying to find just one miracle drug, diffusion evolution could find a bunch of different ones, each one working in its own way.
So instead of putting all our hopes on just one thing working, you'd have a whole bunch of potential treatments. That's huge, especially with something like cancer, where, treatment resistance is such a big problem.
Absolutely. It's just like evolution in nature, right? It doesn't just bet on one thing. It creates this whole web of different organisms that are all successful in their own ways.
This is amazing. We've only just scratched the surface here, haven't we? And what blows my mind is that this is just the beginning.
It really is. This isn't just some new algorithm. It's a whole new way of thinking about how to use the power of evolution to solve problems.
It's almost like we invented AI so it could solve our problems, but now it's showing us that nature had the best solutions all along.
It's pretty wild when you think about it like that. And this research paper, it's really just the tip of the iceberg.
It makes you wonder what else is out there,
Right.
What if evolution itself is just one massively complex algorithm?
There you go. It's like we're trying to find the universe's source code.
Okay, now you're messing with me. But seriously, where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for all of us listening?
Well, I think the biggest thing to remember is this isn't just about AI, it's about opening our minds to what's possible. What this research shows us is that there are totally new ways of looking at problems out there, new ways to be creative.
So it's not just about the destination, it's about what you learn on the way there.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe by learning how these AI systems evolve, we'll discover something new about how intelligence itself works.
Wow. We've definitely given everyone a lot to think about today.
Yeah.
This whole thing has left me with more questions than answers, but in a good way.
That's always a good sign. Means we're onto something big. Hopefully it'll make people want to go out and learn even more about it.
For sure. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, we need to talk about some of the challenges this all brings up. I mean, it can't all be smooth sailing, right?
You're right. Every new technology has its limits. And one thing the researchers themselves said is that it's still early days. They've shown that diffusion evolution works really well for some complex problems, but how far can we push it? What are its boundaries? That's what we need to figure out next.
Right, because understanding the limitations is just as important as getting excited about the potential, right?
100%. And the other big question is how we can make diffusion evolution work for real-world problems that are always changing. Because evolution in nature, that never stops.
So we need to make algorithms that can keep up with that constant change, that can adapt and learn new things as they go. That sounds incredibly difficult.
It is, but that's what makes this so cool. The possibilities are endless. We're basically exploring uncharted territory here.
It's kind of mind-blowing,
Yeah.
We create AI to solve problems, and now it's showing us that the best way to do that is to look at how nature's been doing it all along.
It really is a full circle moment. And this paper, it's really just the tip of the iceberg,
Oh, yeah.
So much more to find, so many connections we haven't even thought of yet.
It really makes you wonder what else we're missing right in front of us.
Yeah.
What if evolution itself, like the real deal, is just like a super advanced algorithm?
Now you're getting it. Like we're trying to reverse engineer the universe's code. And maybe, just maybe, one day we'll be able to write our own.
Okay, now you're just messing with me. But on a serious note, where do we go from here? What are the big takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing is this isn't just about AI. It's about realizing what's possible, pushing those boundaries. What this research is telling us is that there are entirely new ways to approach problems, new ways to think about creativity and coming up with solutions.
So it's not just about getting to the answer, it's about the journey and what we learn along the way.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe by studying how AI evolves, we'll actually unlock something new about how intelligence itself works, in all its forms.
Pretty incredible stuff. And I think we've given everyone a lot to chew on today. This whole deep dive has definitely left me with more questions than answers, but in a good way.
That's a good sign. It means there's still so much to discover. Hopefully it'll encourage folks to go out there and explore these ideas even further.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep those brains buzzing. And remember, the future of intelligence might be closer than we think.
And it might just be evolving right before our eyes.
Okay, so get this, right? What if those AI image generators, like the ones everyone's going crazy over, what if they're actually like doing a version of evolution?
It's a pretty wild idea, isn't it? And the research paper we're looking at today, it really digs into this whole connection.
We're talking about stable diffusion and all that, right? The stuff that spits out those crazy, realistic pictures from just a few words.
Exactly. But to really get this evolution link, we got to do this mind-bending thing, like imagine evolution, but backwards.
Evolution rewind.
Yeah.
Okay, so instead of going from simple to complex, like everything's breaking back down to the basic building blocks.
Yeah, precisely. Picture a complex organism, right? And it's like slowly dissolving back into that primordial soup, the stuff life came from. And now think about how these diffusion models work, those AI image things. They start with total visual chaos, just random pixels, noise, and then step by step, it refines that mess into a clear picture, almost like taking that primordial soup and rebuilding something complex.
All right, I see the visual, but evolution's more than just things getting less messy over time, right?
Yeah.
You've got natural selection, survival of the fittest, mutations, all that Darwin jazz.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where this connection gets really mind-blowing. This paper, it draws some really cool parallels between how these AI models do their thing and those core evolutionary ideas.
Okay, so how does an algorithm, like, decide what survives? That's natural selection, right? How does AI do that?
Imagine you're teaching a diffusion model to create a picture of a sunflower. Every step it takes to clean up the noise, the AI has to choose, right? Which bits of info, which pixels are better to make that sunflower image.
So it's like the AI is looking at this jumble and saying, okay, these pixels kind of look like a petal, let's keep them and dump the rest.
You got it. It's basically picking the data points that get it closer to that target image. Just like in nature, the organisms with the best traits for their environment, they're the ones that make it.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about mutation? Where did that fit in with the AI stuff?
Remember how evolution needs those random genetic mutations just to shake things up? Some are good, some are bad. In these diffusion models, they're constantly adding and removing noise, and it actually does a similar thing. Injects randomness, makes the AI explore different options, even if they lead to weird results like mutations along the way. And sometimes those weird detours actually make the final image even better.
So it's like the AI is messing around trying combos, just like nature does with genes. Kind of wild how this digital process is like a mirror for something that's been happening in the real world forever.
It's seriously remarkable. And it gets even weirder. The researchers found something like reproductive isolation happening in these models.
How can an algorithm be reproductively isolated? Isn't that about like physical barriers separating species?
You're right, but the idea, it can work differently here. So diffusion models, they often focus on making one small part of the data better at a time. Different parts of the model might be working on different things in the image, the stem, the petals, the leaves, almost like those parts are evolving on their own until the final picture comes together.
So it's like different parts of the AI are working on their own little sunflower species, competing and evolving separately until bam, you get the full picture.
That's a great way to put it. And that whole localized evolution thing inside the model, it's a lot like how isolated groups of animals might evolve differently in nature. It's like evolution is showing up in places we never expected, you know? Pretty cool stuff.
So they found all these links between these AI image things and evolution, but they didn't just, like, stop there, right? What did they actually do with this?
They took it and ran with it. They actually built a whole new algorithm, and get this, they called it diffusion evolution. Makes sense, right?
Wait, a whole new algorithm just from
Yeah.
this connection? What's that even like?
Here's the kicker. It doesn't even use those crazy complex neural networks, the stuff that powers things like stable diffusion. Instead, they went straight to the math behind diffusion, that whole cleaning up the noise thing, but they used it for a different problem, optimization.
Optimization. That's
Yeah.
like finding the absolute best solution out of a ton, right? Like those shortest route apps, but way more intense.
You got it. Imagine you're designing something like an antenna, and there are a million ways to do it, all these different shapes and arrangements. Each one's got its own pros and cons, but you need the absolute best one for the job. That's optimization.
Gotcha. So how'd this diffusion evolution thing do? Did it find the best solutions?
Yeah, it did. They tested it with something called a fitness landscape. Imagine a mountain range, right? Your goal is to find the tallest peak. But there's a catch. There could be multiple peaks, different heights, and a lot of algorithms, they get stuck on the first peak they find, even if it's not the tallest one around.
So they're so busy climbing one mountain, they miss out on a bigger one somewhere else.
Exactly. But diffusion evolution, it was different. It explored that whole landscape way better, and it kept finding solutions around those multiple peaks, even when they were hidden among a bunch of not-so-great ones. Like, it had a better map and a compass that wouldn't get fooled.
So it was finding those hidden gems, those top solutions that the other algorithms just missed. That's wild. But Defanon, it's AI, right?
Yeah.
There's always another level. They didn't just stop there, did they?
Nope, they did not. Remember we were talking about latent space earlier? Well, they figured out how to use that to give diffusion evolution a massive upgrade.
Okay, latent space, I remember the word, but a little refresher would be great.
Okay, so picture this. You're trying to describe a cat, right? But instead of listing all the physical stuff, you're getting at its, like, catness, the essence of cat. That's kind of what latent space does. It finds this hidden, simpler way to represent data, but it captures the core idea.
So less about the specifics, more about the, like, blueprint.
Exactly. And this blueprint, it's often way easier to work with, like having a streamlined map for a huge city.
Okay, that makes sense. So how did they actually use this with diffusion evolution?
They basically found a way to do that whole evolution thing, but inside the simplified latent space. They called it latent space diffusion evolution, which, yeah, tracks. The idea is by doing the evolution in this lower dimensional, more abstract world, you find those good solutions way quicker, way more efficiently.
Like they gave the algorithm a shortcut, a faster route through that whole mountain range we were talking about.
Bingo. And to really push it, they tested it on a classic AI problem. You've got this little cart, right? And you have to train a system to balance a pole upright on it.
Oh yeah, the cart pull thing. I've seen videos. Seems simple, but I bet it's tough to actually program.
It is. Got to find that perfect balance for every tiny movement to keep that pole from falling over. So they put the original diffusion evolution head to head with this souped up latent space version. Same challenge, who balances the pole best?
Okay, drum roll.
Yeah.
Who wins?
Latent space diffusion evolution, hands down. It trained the system way faster, like way less time, less computing power to get a good result. Crazy efficient.
So let me get this straight. They saw this hidden link between AI and like actual evolution, used it to build a brand new algorithm, and then made it even better with this whole latent space thing. That's a lot.
And the really exciting part, we're just scratching the surface here. This could change how we solve problems, and not just in AI. This could be huge.
Okay, now you've really got me thinking. We're going beyond pretty pictures and balancing poles in a computer. What kind of change are we talking about here?
Imagine, what if we could design things differently with this diffusion evolution? Buildings that adapt to the weather and use less energy, or self-driving cars that learn from each other in real time, constantly getting better.
So they could evolve on the fly. You like react to their environment just like living things do. That's incredible.
Exactly. And it's not just about robots and AI either. we could use these ideas to wrap our heads around big, complex systems, stuff we struggle with now. Imagine simulating how a city changes as more people live there, or how an ecosystem will react to climate change, stuff like that.
Wow. So it's like a new tool to understand and maybe even predict how these massive, complicated things work. That's both really cool, but kind of scary too, right?
It is, definitely. Like any powerful tool, we got to be careful, ethical, all that. But the potential here, it's huge. This research, it's like opening these doors to brand new possibilities, things we never even thought of before.
This whole deep dive, it's really changed how I see AI and what it can do. We started with cool images. Now we're talking about changing the world, maybe?
That's science for you. You follow the curiosity, see where it goes, even if it ends up in some really unexpected places.
No kidding. And this paper, it's definitely given me a lot to think about. Makes you wonder, what other crazy connections and possibilities are out there just waiting to be found?
Absolutely. It's that sense of wonder, that drive to explore, that keeps things moving, pushes us to do amazing things.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, on that note of wonder and a whole lot to ponder, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored this wild world where AI meets evolution. Until next time, stay curious, everyone.
You've probably seen them, right? Those crazy AI images popping up all over the internet, like someone types in cat dresses Napoleon riding a Roomba, and bam, the AI actually makes it. It's mind-blowing what these diffusion models can do, but get this. Some researchers think these AI tools aren't just mimicking evolution, they might actually be evolution. Well, in a mathematical sense, at least. And that's what we're diving into today.
Yeah, it's a pretty bold claim, gotta say. But this research paper, it lays out a really interesting argument for why we can think of diffusion models as like a type of evolutionary algorithm.
Okay, so before we get lost in the AI woods here, can you remind me how evolutionary algorithms even work? I mean,
Basically, they take inspiration from, nature's playbook, survival of the fittest, inheritance, and those random mutations that pop up.
Mhm.
Imagine you're trying to create a new dog breed.
right.
So over generations, breeders would pick dogs with the traits they want, like size, temperament, coat color, that sort of thing, and breed those dogs together.
Right.
The puppies, they inherit those traits. And then sometimes, boom, mutations happen, and they introduce new variations.
Mhm.
Over time, this whole careful selection thing, it leads to those distinct breeds with, specific characteristics.
Right, it's like how we got from wolves to, like, Chihuahuas and Great Danes.
Exactly.
So how does this relate to AI, making pictures of cats riding Roombas?
Well, just like breeders shape dog populations over generations, diffusion models, they transform data. In this case, it's visual data, but it's still that same process of, iterative refinement.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little. The algorithm's like the breeder, but instead of the dogs, it's working with, like, pixels and patterns in an image.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, diffusion models, they start with pure noise, just a random mess of data. And through this step-by-step process, they gradually refine that noise into a, coherent image.
So it's like starting with a lump of clay and slowly molding it into a sculpture, right?
That's actually a great analogy. And that's where the whole evolution connection comes in. Each step in that denoising process, it's like a generation in evolution. The model is trained to pick out and amplify the data points, the pixels and patterns that fit the image it's going for, while also getting rid of the ones that don't.
So the algorithm isn't just spitting out a random image, it's actually selecting for the data points that fit best, kind of like how natural selection works, favoring those organisms with beneficial traits.
You got it. And this paper, it goes beyond just making a parallel. They actually have a mathematical proof showing how the equations that describe these diffusion models can be directly translated into the ones used for evolutionary algorithms.
Wow. So it's not just like a concept, there's a real mathematical link.
Yeah,
This is where it gets really interesting. Can you tell me more about this math connection?
sure. So basically, they connect the idea of fitness in evolutionary algorithms to the probability density of those data points in diffusion models. Think of it this way. In evolutionary algorithms, fitness determines how likely an organism is to survive and reproduce. And in diffusion models, it's all about how well the data points fit the desired pattern, which then influences how likely they are to be amplified or, suppressed.
So instead of judging a dog's fitness based on its like hunting skills or temperament, we're looking at how well pixels fit to create that specific image. This is really making me rethink how I see evolution. What kind of implications does this have for, I don't know, both AI and evolution research?
Oh, it's huge. This connection, it opens up all these possibilities for sharing knowledge between the two. Insights from AI could unlock new understandings in evolutionary biology and vice versa. This paper even talks about how they were able to create a more powerful evolutionary algorithm by using a trick from advanced diffusion models.
Wait, they used AI to make an evolutionary algorithm better. I got to hear more about this.
They call it latent space diffusion evolution. It basically lets the algorithm work on much more complex problems, things like training robots, by working in a kind of compressed information space.
So is that like when you compress a large file to make it easier to like send or work with?
Exactly. Imagine a zip file.
Yeah.
It's got all the info of the original file, but it's smaller, more manageable. That's kind of a simplified way to think about latent space.
Okay, that makes sense. So by working in this latent space, the algorithm can learn and adapt a lot faster.
Exactly. And the researchers found that this approach, it led to faster learning and even more diverse solutions, which is super exciting for, the future of AI and evolutionary computation.
It's amazing to think that something as complex as evolution, we can view it through a mathematical lens now, all thanks to AI. It's like we're looking at like the blueprint of life itself.
It's pretty groundbreaking stuff for sure. And honestly, we're just scratching the surface here. This paper even mentions how these AI insights are already changing how we understand evolutionary biology.
Yeah, there was something in there about non-Gaussian diffusion models.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, I'm a little lost on that one.
Yeah, it's definitely more on the technical side, but it gets at how we can make these models even more true to life. You see, most diffusion models, they use what's called Gaussian noise, like that classic bell curve, where most of the data clusters around the average. But in the real world, things aren't always so neat and tidy.
Right, it's like some traits are way more common than others.
Exactly. And evolution, it throws curveballs sometimes. It's not always a smooth bell curve.
Yeah, it's definitely not always predictable.
So researchers are creating diffusion models that use different types of noise to better reflect that messy, complex reality of the natural world.
Okay, so it's about making the models less like idealized and more like the real deal.
Exactly. And by incorporating these non-Gaussian models into evolutionary algorithms, it could lead to much more accurate simulations of evolution. We could explore scenarios that we just couldn't model before.
So we're basically giving our evolutionary algorithms a serious upgrade with these non-Gaussian models.
That's the idea. And this could be huge for understanding something called open-ended evolution.
Okay, remind me what open-ended means in this context.
So it's the kind of evolution that doesn't have like a specific end goal in mind.
Okay.
Like think about the evolution of life itself.
Right.
It's not really about reaching a predetermined finish line. It's more about constantly generating diversity and complexity.
Right, because traditional evolutionary algorithms, they're usually built to, solve a very specific problem, like finding the shortest route or winning a game. They have a clear objective.
Exactly. But open-ended evolution, it's more like this meandering exploration of possibilities,
I see.
And that's where these non-Gaussian diffusion models come in. They might just hold the key to really modeling that kind of open-endedness in a way that those traditional algorithms just can't.
It's incredible to think we could use AI to model something as vast and complex as like the entire evolution of life. It's a whole new way of looking at things. But this whole conversation has got me wondering, what if we like flip the script? Could we actually use what we're learning about biological evolution to build better AI?
Oh, absolutely. It's a really fascinating thought and totally possible. I mean, evolution has had literally billions of years to perfect its process, to become this master problem solver, constantly adapting, coming up with innovative solutions.
So you're saying we could learn a thing or two from all those years of trial and error?
Exactly. And one great example is how evolution balances exploration and exploitation.
Right.
It has to, like, make sure existing organisms survive, right? But at the same time, it needs to explore new variations that might be a better fit for a changing environment.
Right.
That balance is something we're still trying to figure out in AI.
It's true. It seems like a lot of algorithms kind of get stuck in a rut, just focusing on what's working right now instead of exploring new and potentially better solutions.
Yeah, exactly. But evolution has kind of cracked the code on that front. By studying its mechanisms, we could potentially design AI that's more robust, more adaptable.
Yeah.
AI that can use what it knows, but is still open to exploring new possibilities.
So instead of just like mimicking how evolution looks from the outside. We're talking about understanding its core principles and using those to create more powerful, more efficient AI.
Exactly. Imagine harnessing the power of natural selection to create AI that learns and adapts in ways we haven't even dreamed of. AI that could, like, evolve solutions to problems we didn't even know existed.
That's a pretty mind-blowing thought, using the very force that shaped life on Earth to shape the future of AI.
Right.
And to think it all started with this connection between diffusion models and evolutionary algorithms.
It really shows you how interconnected knowledge can be.
Yeah.
Sometimes those biggest breakthroughs, they come from finding these unexpected links between fields that seem totally different on the surface.
For sure.
The merging of AI and evolutionary biology. It has the potential to revolutionize both fields and maybe even change how we understand what it means to be intelligent beings in this ever-evolving universe.
Yeah. It's like we're cracking the code of intelligence itself, looking at AI and ourselves in a whole new way.
It really makes you question those old boundaries between, the natural and the artificial.
This whole deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about. Who knew that those AI image generators could lead to something so deep?
It's a good reminder that even the most complex ideas, they often come down to simple, elegant principles. And that maybe, just maybe, by trying to create artificial intelligence, we'll end up understanding our own intelligence even better.
So where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for someone listening who, isn't an AI expert but finds this stuff super interesting?
I think the biggest takeaway is, never stop being curious. And the importance of thinking across different fields. Those aha moments, those breakthroughs, they often happen when you connect things that seem totally unrelated at first.
Right.
I mean, who would have guessed that AI image generators could teach us about evolution? It just goes to show there's always more to learn, and those unexpected connections, those are often the ones that lead to the most amazing discoveries.
It makes you wonder what other secrets are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for us to connect the dots.
Exactly. The more we embrace that sense of wonder and stay open to those unexpected connections, the more likely we are to uncover those hidden truths about our world, about ourselves, about everything.
Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to log off and get back to reality. Thanks for taking this deep dive with me. It's been amazing.
The pleasure was all mine.
Yeah.
Until next time.